Hi, this is Kane Hodder, Victor Crowley, Jason from Friday the 13th. You're listening to withoutyourhead.com.
All right, welcome to Without Your Head Horror Radio. I'm Neil, along with
John.
And that would make me Troy.
All right, and open up the show with us tonight is the return of Adam Green to Without Your Head. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me again. I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, let everybody know that you got the new movie out on DVD, is Spiral. And,
yes.
Yeah, are you happy with the response it's gotten so far?
Oh, it's been great. I was so scared with this one because it's so different from Hatchet, and it's a bold move to kind of start things off on a really high note and get this kind of new fan base, and then all of a sudden turn around and give them something completely different. But sort of the cool thing about it is that the movies were really made simultaneously, and Spiral was shot before Hatchet was even finished being edited. So they're really sort of, in this sick way in my head, they're almost like companion pieces, even though they have nothing to do with each other. But the same people made both movies, and they couldn't be more different, which is really cool. And because it's not, a slasher movie and there's no gore or jokes or anything, I was really scared that the audience wouldn't like it. And one of the first screenings we did, we premiered at the Santa Barbara Film Festival, and I go out and I look, and it's a full house, and there are so many, dudes in black T-shirts and Hatchet shirts and all this shit, and I was like, oh, God, this is going to suck. But you got to not underestimate your audience. And it's also been cool because some of the people who maybe didn't like Hatchet, then they see this, and it just, it really kind of rounded me out. So I'm really happy with it.
So it wasn't something you did on purpose, after Hatchet came out, I want to make something completely different since you were kind of filming at the same time, or you started filming this when you were still editing Hatchet.
Yeah, it was really, I definitely had that in mind as I was doing it. I had no idea at that point that anyone was ever even going to see Hatchet. I had no idea, how much success it was actually going to have. But I did know that I didn't want to get pigeonholed and get stuck in one place. And, I can tell you, when Hatchet first came out, all the stuff that I was being sent and offered was basically Hatchet with a different name. And then, the studios call you in, and they're like, well, we want to do Hatchet at a sorority house. We want to do Hatchet here. I'm like, I already did that. What about something else? And then they're like, how about a remake of this? And that's pretty much every meeting is what remake do you want to do? And it's tough in this town right now for horror because the only good, or I shouldn't say the only good, but the only original horror that's really coming out is from the independents. The studios don't really want anything to do with it. Mm-hmm. So the fact that Hatchet was successful was, I think, whether you liked the movie or not, it was definitely a victory for the genre. Because the mainstream Hollywood system definitely stood up and took notice, and I think that's awesome, and I think that the fans are the ones who did that.
Mm-hmm. Well, is it even harder just to get someone to listen to you if it's not a remake?
It's really hard, really hard. You go in and you're like, well, I have this original idea, or this thing that I want to do, and they listen. And the thing is, it's not like the execs are bad people. Most of them are extremely cool people. But they have to kind of watch out for their jobs, and they have to be able to defend the decisions they make. So if you're going to do something that's a remake, or it has this huge TV star in it, or whatever the combination is, it's kind of a safer bet because you can explain why you did it. And with the remakes, because it's a prepackaged title, a lot of people recognize it and they think, oh, I want to see that, which is why, you have a movie like Texas Chainsaw, Halloween, Friday the 13th is coming out. It doesn't even matter if it's good. Everyone's going to go. And it's really hard to get people to go to movie theaters at this point. Unless it's one of those huge blockbuster movies, it's really hard to get people in the door because the DVD is always out so soon after, and people have great TVs at home, great sound systems. They don't want to deal with the crowds. They don't want to deal with the other people. And I have it really good because I live in L.A., and it's a very movie-friendly town. So every opening night, almost every movie, there's a lot of people there. and they're very respectful of it. They really want to watch the movie, but you go out of town and people talking on their phones during it and like arguing with each other. Didn't somebody just get shot watching The Signal like last week? Which is great press for those guys. I was actually excited when I heard about that. I was like, sweet. But it's really hard to get people to go, and I think the trend that we're going to see is that every movie is going to be 3D in like the next few years, because it's the only way to get people to go, because that's something you can't do at home.
Mm-hmm. We should get a caller here. Who is this?
Hello?
Yeah, you're on the air with Adam Green?
Yeah, this is JD. This is JD from New York. I'm a big fan of Adam Green. I just have 2 questions. Is that cool?
Sure, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. One, can we expect, like, you to team up with Joel David Moore again down the road? And 2, how far away is Hatchet II? How, like, you know?
Okay, well, the first question, Joel and I will, definitely be doing something again. I don't think that we'll ever co-direct again, and not because there was anything wrong with the experience. It was actually as good as it could be. I just don't know if there's ever going to be the right project or the need to do that again. But we are talking about writing something together, and he's my favorite actor of all time, so he'll always be showing up and stuff. The next movie I'm doing, it's been hard to not use him as the lead, but I can't do 3 in a row with the same dude in the leading role. And he gives me so much shit about it. And while he was in New Zealand shooting Avatar, he's still sending me text messages giving me shit that I'm not using him in the next thing. And then Hatchet II, it's definitely going to happen. The first one was a big success for the powers that be, and they'd kind of be idiots to not do a sequel. And I have every intention of coming back to do it, but at this moment, I still haven't agreed to do it. It's kind of hard to explain, but a lot of it is just what the circumstances are going to be, because sometimes when they make sequels to these movies, there's no more heart to them, and they don't care, and they kind of put it on an assembly line. And one of the things that I'm asking for is, like, the same crew who made the first one should get the option to come back and do it again. It would be nice if the people who worked on it got paid this time, mainly me, it would be awesome. And that the fans are going to be catered to, and they're not going to suddenly say, well, let's make it PG-13 because we can make more money. And not that any of those things have even been said yet, but I'm waiting till I know that everything is right and it's going to be the movie that I want it to be before I agree to do it. And the other problem is scheduling, because I do have other films coming up, and they really want to move quickly with Hatchet II. So hopefully it all works out, because I don't know what I would do if I had to, like, just produce and sit there and watch somebody else doing it. It would just kill me, because it's so fun. And that's really where it stands. But it is definitely going to happen, and I'm planning on coming back. Kane's planning on coming back, and Tony Todd's planning on coming back. And a lot of other surprises, people that you don't think you're going to see again from the first one, are going to come back. So
a one-armed Ben?
No one. Well, actually, you know what? We're talking about something with that, but I don't know if we had the budget to do like a Forrest Gump and like green screen out his arm. I would totally try to bring him back. But a lot of people don't notice this, but his throat is actually ripped out too. And and then it was like, well, then he could talk like JP from Grandma's Boy through the whole thing. But I don't know if Joel really wants to do that.
Yeah, I was thinking, that could be the ongoing theme of if it goes on past 2 was, every film he gets another limb torn off.
He's just in a bed by the end.
Right, just a torso with a head. Did you have anything else, JD?
No, thanks. Just Adam Green, you're the man. Thank you so much.
Dude, thank you so much.
Now, if they wanted, they'll have to have your permission to make a sequel, even if they decide to. They couldn't just do it without you.
Well, it's tricky, because basically there's like a company that we all formed, which is the people who invested in the first one. So I have a say in it, but not enough to actually stop it. It's not like if I can't do it and then they let me read the script or what they're doing and I say this is all wrong. I couldn't stop it from happening, which is, now I finally understand why, especially with slasher movies, why the sequels are so bad, because the original director can't do it and they don't even have a say in it. But the good thing about this is that everyone involved loves each other so much. Like, the people I produced the first one with are my best friends. Even the distributor, Anchor Bay, like, I love those guys. It's like, it's not just like they put out the movie. I go out drinking with them. I mean, it's a really good relationship. So I can't really, I'd be shocked if I didn't end up coming back and it wasn't the story that I always intended it to be. But I just don't want to promise anything yet because nothing is actually signed. But there's like paperwork going back and forth like this week. So I'm hoping pretty soon we'll be able to announce something. Yeah. The cool thing, though, is that now there's other bigger studios that, because technically we can do the sequel wherever we want. We don't have to do it with Anchor Bay. Mm-hmm. And I want to do it with Anchor Bay because I love Anchor Bay. But it's been kind of interesting to see some of the people who passed on it the first time. Now all of a sudden they're making calls, being like, "So what's going on with the sequel? What's going on with the sequel?"
Oh, that's cool. I like that.
It's interesting. But the problem with that though is like once you go with another studio, that screws up like the DVD box sets and stuff because now one person owns the first. Like it sucks that we can't get a definitive Halloween box set because too many people own the movies. And I just keep trying to think like down the road and like what's best for the fans. And like Anchor Bay, they're so good with their DVDs and like how they package them and the special features that we got to do on Hatchet for like an independent no budget movie. That package and the special features on that, like we got to do them ourselves. Normally, you don't get a say in any of that stuff, and everything was done by us, and it was just great.
Mm-hmm. If anybody, if they only saw the movie at the theater, you have to get the DVD because, like you mentioned about the special features on there, some of that stuff's just great. Like the stuff with Kane Hodder, where he's all the stories that he wouldn't let the crew see him with, the rest of the cast see him without the makeup. And the rubber hatchet.
Great. The blooper reel too. Yeah.
Yeah, Sarah Albert, who produced the movie, she's one of the producers. She her day job before we did Hatchet was to be a DVD producer, where she did the special features on these like huge studio movies. Mm-hmm. So she kind of took that all under her wing, and from the get-go, when we were first making the mock trailer, when we had no idea if the movie was ever even going to happen, she was shooting it. And so it's cool to watch the DVD and see how it starts with us making the mock trailer and really watch the whole story. The only thing that I don't like about the DVD, and this is nobody's fault, but there's only so much room on the DVD, is that it talks about the production and then it's like over. And the real story of Hatchet is the year and a half after that we made the movie and the struggle to get it in theaters, the fight with the MPAA, the fact that the fans actually formed an army. And what's funny about the whole Hatchet Army thing is people think that was us. It wasn't. The fans started that, and then we just went with it. The fact that the horror websites, which normally all used to bicker and fight with each other, all unified and got behind it, and the fact that a lot of the theaters that played it were from fans going to the theater and asking them to play it, and they got what they wanted. So I wish that whole struggle had been in there, but a lot of it's so depressing. Like there were so many dark times. I think they just didn't want to do it. But hopefully when, it's Anchor Bay and they love to reissue their DVDs several times. I know I own about 50 different copies of Evil Dead.
I was Evil Dead. I don't think there's a box set of the Evil Dead films either. I think there is in the UK, but not here.
I think it's because Anchor Bay only owns 1 and 2, and I think, I could be wrong, but I think somebody else owns Army of Darkness. Mm-hmm. I think that's what the problem is there. So, we really would like to see this all work out and happen with Anchor Bay. But another thing that would be cool would be if next time around maybe they advertised the film. That would be kind of cool. I mean, we did really well in theaters, especially given the fact that we didn't have one TV commercial, no billboards, no buses. It was all internet and word of mouth. And we couldn't even afford to get banner ads on a lot of those websites. They did it for free because they believed in the film. Mm-hmm. And it's just, I don't know if I'll ever do another movie where I'll see that happen again. And I think it feels like a once in a lifetime thing, but I can only hope that for the next up and coming filmmaker that it can happen for them too, because it was so cool to see the actual fans and the horror community pick it up and carry it over the end zone when I couldn't do anymore. Mm-hmm. It was really special to see.
Do you think you said you like having some dark times during that period and being depressed? If that wasn't there, all the fans really like rallying behind the film. Do you think you might have just gave up and not
I would never give up. My girlfriend had a great analogy, and like this is another one of those like sort of darker stories because they show in the behind the scenes how Riley and I met, which was her doing the makeup test for young Victor Crowley, and 3 years later we're living together and the whole thing. But after Hatchet premiered at Tribeca, it was all this great reviews and buzz and hype, and then it was like dead. And we didn't have like the offers that we wanted, and I had the choice. It's like to kind of sell out and go with, like, I don't want to say their name, but a big company that wanted it but was not going to guarantee any type of real theatrical release, or keep fighting. And I kept fighting, and by like the time the next year and a half had gone by, it's like she couldn't even recognize me anymore, and she always says it was like Rocky at the end of the fight, where in like his face he's just like looks like Victor Crowley almost, and it's like it's like the lights were out and everyone had gone home, and I'm still in the ring like swinging because I still have some fight left in me. So I really did see that one like all the way through, but it never would have gotten the release it did and the attention that it got if it wasn't for the fans. When we did Fangoria, the Fangoria convention in Burbank last summer, we were like the kind of small movie because I think Rob Zombie was there with Halloween and Eli was there with Hostel 2, and we had more people in our panel than any of them and a longer line for like autographs, and we hadn't even come out yet. So, and people saw that and they responded to it. Even the theaters, they were calling and asking for it. So it was cool. But the MPAA thing, that was just like, that was awful. And like now I can finally talk about it because I was basically threatened, like if you talk about this, we'll screw you even more. But they hate independent movies, and they'll try to deny it up and down, but they do because they're paid by the studios, and they just give you a hard time because they can. And by this point, most people have seen the unrated version of Hatchet, and you can't try to tell me that that's anything even close to what happens in some of these other movies that have come out. There's no torture. There's nothing realistic about it. There's no sex. There's no drug use. There's no homophobic remarks. There's no, like, it's so harmless, and its heart is in the right place. And they just, like, I had to go to trial over it. And, like, literally they brought me to, like, tears in front of the committee that I had to stand trial in front of because they wouldn't listen. And they wanted to go after somebody, and I was an easy target because I didn't have any money behind me. So it was awful. And then because of the NC-17 branding, there were major theater chains that wouldn't take it. Even though we got it down to an R, they just didn't want it. And they succeeded there in sort of stopping us from becoming any bigger.
Well, what exactly is cut out of the R-rated version?
The R-rated version, pretty much every death was shortened a lot. Mm-hmm. Some of the deaths were like, each person sort of almost has like a couple different deaths because it takes a while to kill everybody. But like, for instance, Marcus in the cemetery, he gets his arms ripped off and then he gets his head bashed open against the mausoleum. In the theatrical version, he just got his arms ripped off and it cuts away really quick and that's it. Jenna doesn't get impaled on the shovel handle. She just gets her jaw sanded off, and it's very, very fast. And what I was trying to explain to them was that by doing that, they were changing the intentions and the tone of the film because it almost made it seem like we were trying to go for realism at that point, where the whole reason why we lingered on this stuff was for the fun of it. And I know to a group of 70-year-old soccer moms, like, they don't understand the fun that we have with this stuff, but it's not like we watch a movie like Hatchet and sit there and think, oh, I'm going to go do that to somebody, and you don't walk out all disturbed and sick. You walk out laughing, and it's just a release, and it's fun. And I kind of felt like they took that away. But, of course, every filmmaker, you have to cut one frame, and you feel like they completely ruined your vision. And, I mean, the movie still worked, but they just had the wrong one. And literally the day that I lost that trial, like, I didn't know what I was going to do with myself at that point, and that was the night that Hostel 2 opened. and I went to see Hostel 2, and I don't even remember what happened in that movie. All I was seeing was the head of the MPAA's face and what I wanted to do to it, because how the fuck can you castrate a dude on camera and feed his dick to a dog and, like, hang a girl upside down and cut her open, and, like, and look, I love that shit. I think it's fucking awesome. I'm not slamming Hostel 2 in any way. But how did they get away with that, but we couldn't get away with a swamp monster chasing a bunch of comedians through the woods with a gas-powered belt sander?
And like you said, the stuff's so over the top that, you know, it actually makes it funny. Yeah. It's almost like the scene in Monty Python's Holy Grail when the guys are getting all chopped up. I mean, it makes you laugh.
That's, you know, it's funny, I brought that up in the trial. I said they're getting killed in Monty Python-esque, like, cartoonish ways, and they didn't see it that way. And at one point, the end, like, you know, it's basically they show the movie to a group of senior citizens, and at that point, I'd seen the movie all over the world, and there's certain jokes, doesn't matter if you're in Spain, Germany, Canada, United States, there's certain jokes that always hit, the audience always laughed, and they didn't laugh at one thing in the movie. And at one point, I actually yelled out from the back of the theater. I was like, "Come on!" I was so mad. And afterwards, I closed my argument by saying, if you give this movie an NC-17, a rating which means pornographic, then you're saying that, you know, the scene in The Hills Have Eyes remake where they rape a woman while they're holding an infant and then sucking on the mom's tit, shooting her in the head, biting the head off a parakeet, drinking the blood while dad is crucified outside and on fire, that's okay, but God forbid a swamp monster kills some people in cartoonish ways, and nobody would make eye contact with me. I mean, even our poster, our original poster, it was just a black poster with a hatchet on it. They banned it and said it was too violent. Yet the 300 poster has dudes falling off and blood splatters all over it, and the Hostel posters, and why was that okay, but it wasn't for us? And you know, I know that I won that trial, and everybody in that room knows it, but they weren't allowed to let me win, because if I did, then everybody would start lining up and trying to fight them. So it was all political, and you know, even, you know, the head of the MPAA, her name's Joan Graves. Afterwards, when we're standing out in the hall waiting for them to deliberate, she was like, you know, I feel really bad about this, and you made some really good points in there. Call my office today, and we'll work this out. And I was like, there's no verdict yet, lady. Like, why don't we wait for the verdict? But, of course, they already knew what it was going to be. And they came out, and they said the rating stands as NC-17. And she said, we'll call my office, and we'll talk about it. I called that woman 3 times over the next 2 weeks. She never returned my call. So it was just unfair, because I think there's a lot of horror directors who go for, like, the shock thing, and they try to be really sick and depraved and just, you know, be really, you know, I don't know what the right word is, because I like those movies I'm talking about. It's not like I'm slamming them. Mm-hmm. But this movie was all about the fun and the don't you remember what it used to be like before everything was a remake and a torture film or had no gore in it whatsoever. And they just, because we were an independent movie that made it all the way, they fought us so hard, and ultimately they wound up winning.
When we had you on before, you mentioned you got some, like, flack, I think, from the studio about the no, it was like no remake, it's not a sequel, it's not a remake, not based off a Japanese one, like that tagline. Was that still on the poster when it was at the theater?
No, that had to go. Which I was, man. What was cool about that tagline was that was just for the festivals when we did that tagline. And that tagline was an actual rejection letter from a major studio when the script went out. And the letter said, we really like the writing. We would love to meet you and talk about doing something else. But unfortunately, this movie will never get made because it's not a remake, it's not a sequel, and it's not based on a Japanese one. And they weren't trying to be funny. They didn't realize how funny that was. And so we put it on the poster for the festivals because all those same people were now coming to look to buy it. And it was, it served 2 purposes. The first one was that it was like a kind of playful wink and a nod to showing that the movie has a sense of humor and not to take it too seriously. And then the other nod was just a huge middle finger to all those people walking into the theater saying, fuck you and what you guys do.
You mentioned earlier about the internet, and do you think that's becoming like a more mainstream place to for movies to promote their stuff to? Like what was the movie with the giant monster, guys? That was all over the internet. Yeah, that was all over the internet. Yeah.
I think the internet is definitely, it helps build awareness, but it builds awareness in the people that already have awareness. I think we also saw with, I mean, if there was any movie that had internet buzz over the past, like, decade, it was Blair Witch and Hatchet. And Blair Witch also had a marketing campaign with TV commercials with their own, like, TV special, all that other stuff, and it did great. Hatchet didn't get any of that. And while we did really well and we held our own, it never blew up past that because the people who were going to see it were the people from the internet, and that was it. It wasn't like General Joe moviegoer was going to see that poster and know what it was, which is why it would have been really helpful if Anchor Bay had actually spent some money and advertised the film. And I think now, seeing what it did on DVD, they realize that. So that's good. But a lot of people think the internet hype is going to translate to box office dollars, and I don't really think it does. The other bad thing about the internet is that we got pirated like a week before we came out, and I saw one of those copies, and I didn't have a copy of the movie yet. Nobody did. Yet somehow this thing got out that was the uncut version. It was perfect quality. Everything about it was great. And it got downloaded like thousands and thousands of times before the movie even came out. And what sucks is obviously the people who did that are horror fans, and if they had just gotten on like Fandango, even if the movie, I know some people said they were entitled to download it because it wasn't playing near them. It's not true. And if they had just gotten online and bought a ticket wherever it was playing, that would have made such a difference and blown up the whole release. And I know everyone thinks, like, you know, why should I have to pay for it? You guys make enough money. What the fuck? Like, it was an independent movie that was made with, like, real people's own money. It wasn't Warner Brothers and, you know, money coming out of some mystery bank account with endless funds. It really, really hurt us really bad. And it was to the point where it was, like, bittersweet, where I'd get fan mail from people like, dude, I love the movie. It's my favorite movie ever. I downloaded it illegally. And, like, what do you write back? Like, thank you and fuck you. Like,
you think it's weird that there is some people that they don't really see that as a bad thing. It's almost like, I don't know. It seems like they don't see that what they see it as like you're still supporting the product if you download it.
Well, you know, eventually there will be a system where that is supporting it, but unfortunately, with an independent movie like Hatchet or Spiral, it's every single ticket at that box office means so much. Right. Like Pirates of the Caribbean, if you download a copy of it, you're not really hurting them. I mean, yeah, you are, but not really in the grand scheme of things. With us, like another, like, let's say 50 tickets in each city sold would have meant, you know, a bigger release the next week, because that's the only thing that the system cares about is how many people actually went and bought a ticket. Now, you don't actually have to go to the movie. Like, you can just get online and buy a matinee ticket for $4 just to say, okay, look, I'm supporting it, and that helps. And I kept trying to make that point clear in, like, my blogs and on the Hatchet website to all the people that were stealing it. And unfortunately, their retaliation was, oh, you're so greedy. You must be so rich. Why do you need more money from me? Like, it should be enough that I'm watching it. And, yeah, I appreciate that they're watching it, but, you know, it's like you can tell me my girlfriend's hot. That's one thing, but, like, raping her, that's another. Like, it's really hard.
Right. Just showing how much I like her.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just telling you she's really hot.
When the caller called in about a sequel and everything, is there anything like floating around in your head when you think about making the sequel to Hatchet, like any death scenes or anything like that?
Oh my, yeah, you know, the sequel's been done since I wrote the first one, and it was, you know, we kept knowing like what we were trying to do with a slasher movie. I think that a lot of the other ones made the mistake of they were meant to be one movie. And then when they were successful, they just said, well, we'll just keep bringing the killer back. And they kind of lost their soul. And there's a lot of questions left unanswered in Hatchet, and that was on purpose so that the sequel won't just be Victor Crowley killing people again. There'll actually be some storyline there for the fans. And the third one, too, if they get that far. After that point, I don't have that much mapped out yet, but hopefully someone will figure it out. But the death scenes, while we were on set doing the ones from the first one, I was already talking to Kane about what I was going to do in the second one. And it's, a lot of people are like, how are you going to top the first one? But if it happens, we're definitely going to top it.
Was it strange directing, Spiral, something that you didn't write? after coming off of directing something that you wrote yourself?
Again, there's two answers to that one, because it was definitely strange in the fact that I didn't have absolute power in that situation, especially because Jeremy Daniel Boring, who is the other writer. You know what else sucks about Spiral? Everyone's got 3 names in that movie, so I was going to have to get a third name. It's like Joel David Moore and Jeremy Daniel Boring, and I'm like Adam Green. I'm like the boring guy. He was a producer on the movie, so he was there over my shoulder, and it was good. It was good in the fact that I didn't have to bear that burden of when a line wasn't working or we needed to come up with something different. I had him there to do it, and so I could keep focusing on just directing, which was very helpful. But at the same time, I would want to do something that wasn't exactly the way he and Joel planned on it, and all of a sudden there has to be a 20-minute discussion about it, which was very frustrating at times. But the good thing about this group is that we're all friends, and there was all of that, those kind of moments that happen. It always resulted in something better. One of my favorite stories is the scene at the if you haven't seen the movie yet, I guess stop listening for a few minutes. But the scene at the end when Mason drags Amber into the bathroom to kill her. Mm-hmm. The writer saw what I was trying to do with that. I'm like, yeah, we have a stunt coordinator there, and I'm like, you're going to throw her down here, and then this is going to fall over, and this is going to happen. And he hated it. And he was like, no, this isn't Hatchet. That's what he kept saying. I would get so mad when he'd say that. And I'm like, I know it's not Hatchet, but, you need a payoff in this movie at some point. And he's like, no, Mason wouldn't do that. He should just walk her down the hall. I'm like, why would she go down the hall? So we fought so hard that we had to break the crew for lunch. We fought all the way through lunch, and then we actually had to shoot a different scene after lunch because there was still no resolution. And ultimately, out of that fight, the compromise was that as Mason's dragging her down the hall, he would be apologizing to her, saying, I'm sorry, which totally made that scene way better. And so out of that fight, I think we both got our way, and I think the scene was better because of it. So it was cool to direct something I didn't write. I don't know if I'm necessarily going to make a habit out of that. I think I like to direct my own stuff better, but I don't know. I mean, I just directed a pilot for MTV that I don't know if it's ever going to see the light of day, but I didn't write it, and I really didn't like that process at all, because any change I wanted to make, you have the network over your shoulder like, ooh, that's not in the script. Yeah. And that was really hard.
Oh, was it hard to direct Joel David Moore as a different character?
Not at all. I mean, the only real thing I even had to do with that was sometimes tell him to dial it back a little bit, because he's already creepy enough, and you didn't want it to be completely unbelievable that she would see something to like in him. Mm-hmm. But he's an actor, he's a director, he's a writer. He knew what he was doing, and he was never really, the real fun was directing Zach Levi for me, because that guy is he's going to be the next Tom Hanks, and he's so versatile, and he's like a computer. He's so good because he can do something, and then you're doing another take, and you're like, yeah, I like that, but I liked it when your lip quivered on this line, and then you blinked on this line, and then you're getting so specific, and most actors would get so pissed at you at that point and be like, just let me do my thing, and he just looks at you, and then he nods, he's like, okay, and he does it, and he's so charismatic. And in between takes, he gets up off the floor after doing a scene crying and has everybody on the crew laughing and singing, and then gets right back into it. And he was just, I can't wait to work with him again. He's so great.
Mm-hmm. Well, was it just an instant chemistry with all you guys?
Was it the same chemistry with all of us? Yeah, I definitely think so. I like to think I'm a very actor-friendly director, in the fact that I listen to what the actors think and what they want. I don't do rehearsals. Instead, I do meetings where we just read through the script and we talk about every scene and every line, and I give the actors a chance at that point to say what they think about every line, and listen to their ideas, and then try to implement it as best as I can without compromising the integrity of the film. And I think the actors really appreciate that, because they're not just being puppets at that point. They're actually a big part of the filmmaking process.
Yeah. You haven't made anybody cry yet, have you?
Well, I haven't made anybody cry out of frustration, but I made Tamara Feldman cry almost every night on Hatchet by messing with her head so bad. And but she was game for it, and she really appreciated it. And there was, I think we talked about it on the DVD, there was a scene where she has to cry in the shed when she finds her brother and her father dead. And, you know, when you're in a movie that's essentially kind of a comedy and everybody else is having fun and laughing, and then all of a sudden you have to get serious and you're looking at rubber toys on the ground, it can be kind of hard. So I sat with her for a while and showed her these candid pictures that we took of Josh Leonard and Robert Englund. I'm telling her all these stories about Christmas at her aunt's house and, you know, giving her, like, memories to have of them, and then walked her into the shed. And she's afraid of the dark. That's one of her actual fears in real life. And she just had this little pen light. And I said, okay, I'll be right back. And then the whole crew had to be silent for 20 minutes. Nobody spoke, and she was stuck up in that dark shed. And there's, like, dead animals. It smells bad. And so after a few minutes, she starts yelling, like, okay, you know, someone come get me. I don't want to do this anymore. And 20 minutes later, she's, like, hysterical and screaming, somebody please come get me. I don't want to do this anymore. And so other people in the cast are starting to cry, and everyone's like, dude, go get her. It's enough. And so then we, like, flick on the lights, and we start rolling, and she just lost her shit. And then as soon as I said cut, she ran out and punched me in the face. And then 5 seconds later, it's hugging me saying, that was so awesome. So it worked out well.
Did you guys ever find that girl that you were talking about on the commentary track on Spiral?
The girl with the nice ass?
Yeah.
No, we didn't. I'm sure there were, if we really, really wanted to find out, there's got to be a way to figure out who that extra was, but none of us have reached that level of stalker yet. But God, that girl was beautiful.
You mentioned about you didn't want the movie to be PG-13 to make a sequel. But actually, Spiral's PG-13, and you really, I think this is probably a compliment to the movie. You actually it doesn't occur to you while you're watching it.
No, it really doesn't. In fact, I think had there been gore or violence or nudity in Spiral, it would have kind of cheapened the movie. And it's like, you know, for us, I don't think that there's such thing as a PG-13 slasher film. If you're going to be a slasher movie, it's called a slasher because you're giving the fans what they want. And that's my big thing with Hatchet. Like, the PG-13 version of Hatchet would just suck. But Spiral is a completely different genre. I mean, it's horror, but it's way more, you know, in your head, and it's just kind of I don't want to say smarter, but it's a different level. The romantic comedy I'm doing next is PG-13, and, you know, it's funny how I started getting hate mail when people saw that Spiral was PG-13. They're like, what happened to you? You sold out. Like, I didn't sell out. It's a different movie. Just relax. Like,
yeah, tell them to watch
how dare you make a romantic comedy and Victor Crowley's not in it? Like, sorry.
Just throw in some guy getting his arm ripped off just so you can get the R rating.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be a deleted scene where all of a sudden, right when they're about to kiss, they kill each other instead.
Well, we don't want to give away too much of the ending of the movie if people haven't seen Spiral, but do you think it was a good idea not to show what's on the final sketch?
Yeah, in fact, you know, there's so much in that movie that we leave up to the audience, and I think, you know, because of the nature of the movie, I think a lot of people really kind of dug that and appreciated it. So then there's some audiences who, like, they need every single thing explained, otherwise they don't get it. And that's just, you know, this isn't the movie for them if that's the case. But what's funny about the last sketch is that I never questioned it when I read it. I never even needed to know. And we never even had a discussion about it. And even Amber, who had to look at the sketch pad, which had nothing on it, and react, never even asked, okay, what am I looking at? She didn't need to know. But the rest of the crew, that was killing them through the shoot. So people would pull us aside and say, so, all right, honestly, what's the last pose? And we'd be like, oh, just read the script, it's in there. And it's not. But then, you know, they're sitting there reading, like, I can't find it, I don't understand this. And then we started making up stuff, and we would tell, you know, like, the makeup department one thing, the camera department another, and then they'd be arguing about it at lunch, everyone's thinking that they knew. But, I mean, like, I can say, like, what I think it was is that, you know, Mason came home and found his mother dead in the bathroom, and because of his issues with women, no matter what happens with every woman he meets, it always ends up the same way, which is how he found his mother killed. But I think Joel has a completely different idea for what's on the last pose, but my name is first on the directing credits, so I'm right and he's wrong.
you think that's what makes it so powerful, though? It's it's whatever is in your head, whatever the worst thing you could think of. So it kind of makes it more powerful, because if it just put your vision on there, it might not be as might not mean as much to someone else who's watching it.
No, and I mean, Hitchcock did that the best, and it was just, what's in your head is so much scarier than anything that you could show. Even, everyone always goes back to Jaws. Like, it's for some people, they love the end when the shark jumps out of the water, but it's actually, there's other parts of that film that are far scarier. And I think that works for this movie. You don't see what's in the bathroom at the beginning. You don't see what he did to her. You don't know. And a lot of times your mind is way scarier than something that you could see. There's a movie that's going to be coming out pretty soon. I don't know if you guys have heard about this yet. It's called Paranormal Activity. And it's one of those movies where you don't really see anything, and I have not been that scared watching a movie, I don't think, ever. They're still in the process of figuring it out, like how they're going to put it out, and hopefully there's an announcement pretty soon about it, but it blew me away. It absolutely blew me away.
You mentioned about 3D earlier. Any would you be up for making Hatchet II in 3D?
I always wanted to do Hatchet 3 in 3D just because that's what you do, but the technology is there, and it's not really that much more expensive than regular filmmaking. So I don't know. I mean, I do think that most films are going to be 3D in the coming years just because it's the only way to get people into the theater. They need a gimmick. And so I don't know. I would consider it for Hatchet 2, but only for the sole purpose of cutting off somebody's tits and having them fly at the audience. Like, even if there's not one other 3D gag in the movie, like, I just want to see that.
Right. And just some random pointing into the camera.
Exactly. Just all of a sudden there's a random naked chick in the swamp and she gets killed.
No, what were you saying, sir?
Oh,
John?
I was just laughing there.
Oh, I'm sorry. We actually had I thought you were going to ask a question from UK Adam.
Okay.
UK Adam, I'm not sure. I think he met up with you on a convention in the UK, and he actually gave you something like a bobblehead Jason, and he wanted to know how it was doing.
Oh, Adam. Yeah, I know Adam. Yeah, it's in my office over my desk. The bobblehead Jason is doing great. I think he actually gave me a sign that said "Without Your Head," and he took a picture of it.
Yeah, we have that.
Yeah,
it's up on MySpace.
Yeah, he's the UK fans are so freaking awesome, and every summer they have this thing called Fright Fest, which is like it's a film festival, but it's very unique in the fact that the same people sit in the same seats every year. It's like you're a season pass holder, and you get there at like 10 in the morning, and you stay till 2 in the morning, and it's just one movie after the next for 5 days, and there's nothing else like it. Like, the selection of films that they show are great. Most of them are still like a year away from coming out. The guys who coordinated are like the most diehard fans ever, and the fan base that goes there is just so passionate and so smart. And I'm going to go again this year, even though I don't have a movie to actually show there. I'm just going to go as a fan to be there.
Yeah, Adam actually invited us to go this year, but it's a little far for us.
It's far, but if you can figure out a way to go, it's definitely worth it. I mean, it's the best horror film festival on the planet, and at this point, I've been to pretty much all of them, and nothing can touch Fright Fest.
Yeah. You were supposed to just say that you carry around a Without Your Head sign.
I mean, yeah, I carried around, and he just was like, "Oh, let me take a picture of that," and that was it.
Yeah, I'll have to get you a better sign. Was there anything else from the board, John?
Oh, you've caught me off guard here.
Oh, man. Someone in the chat room, they want to know what was the name of the movie you mentioned? The one that they don't show anything that's really scary?
Oh, Paranormal Activity. At least that's what it's called right now. Sometimes titles change and stuff when things come out, but it's extremely, extremely underground right now, but it's when it comes out, just remember this conversation, because I think you guys are going to love it.
Is there anything else out there maybe people don't know about, that like some movies you would recommend? I'm really, aside from that one, I'm so kind of out of the loop and behind on movies after like 2 years of making two and promoting them. Like,
I have to like catch up on so much. So there's not much else that I can think of off the top of my head that I know that's coming out. I'm trying to think. I'm really excited for Mother of Tears, which should be out very soon. And from what I've seen of that, Adam and Jace, the writers, showed me about like 20 minutes of it, and it's like total like Suspiria, but like way more gore. And I just think Argento fans are gonna like cream over it.
Now you mentioned the bobblehead. Has there been any like Victor Crowley action figures being planned?
Let's see. I know that this weekend they're unveiling like a limited edition Victor Crowley figurine. It's like 18 inches tall, and it's handmade, but it retails for like $1,600
nice.
a figurine.
Right.
And they're only making 20 of them. It's very limited, and I think in Dallas, Kane is going to be there to unveil it. But then as far as the action figures and stuff go, there's been a lot of talk and like the starts of it, but at this point, like everything's been on, let's get the sequel rolling first, and then we'll figure out the merchandise. But there's Halloween masks that have been made, and they'll definitely be available for next Halloween.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, speaking of action figures, I know you got the Hillbilly Jim on the camera. You talked about him on the Spiral. The Spiral DVD.
Yeah, I'm not even a wrestling fan, but we were in the transpo van on the way to set on Spiral, and I overheard the camera department arguing with each other because one guy was trying to say that Hillbilly Jim wasn't a wrestler. And I was like, no, dude, he was totally a wrestler. And they're like, shut up, you don't even know what you're talking about. So on the day off, I went to Target, and I found the action figure, and I bought it. And I came in and I said, okay, look. And then he got taped to the camera for a while. And then all of a sudden the sound department stole him, and everyone started calling him a traitor because he went over to sound. So then they desecrated him and wrote all this like awful stuff all over his chest. And then Jake the Snake showed up, and like the wardrobe department had him. And then pretty soon there was just wrestlers on set all the time. And then we started kind of hiding Hillbilly Jim in shots of the movie. And I don't even know every shot that he's in. I know a couple that he's in. I know, and I don't even know if you can even see it, but when Joel grabs Amber Tamlin and starts dragging her down the hallway, it knocks over his stool of all the paints and stuff, and I was actually the one who put Hillbilly Jim in the jar of paints, so I know he's in that shot. I don't know how much of him you can see, but I just think it's funny that Mason likes Hillbilly Jim.
He's actually working for Sirius now. He's on Outlaw Country. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
he hosts the radio show.
That's great.
Next time you do the Fangoria, you might have to watch out for Hillbilly Jim.
Yeah, he'll come looking for me. But I'm the one who proved he existed, so he should like me.
Get him a cameo in the next movie.
Yeah, he could fit right in.
If you've seen him recently, though, he looks more like a bikie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was on Raw, I think last year, Monday Night Raw. And he's got real black hair, and he's got a short beard. And he doesn't wear the hillbilly attire.
Well, that might get him a little typecast, I guess, at this
point. So in the name, I think. I'm Hillbilly Jim. We got a caller here. Who is this?
This is Astro Cream.
Hi. You got a question for Adam?
Yeah, I was wondering if you have any advice for a aspiring filmmaker who's just getting started.
Advice for an aspiring filmmaker. Let's see. I think the most important thing is that you keep making short films. I know a lot of people think that, well, what are you going to do with a short film? You can't sell it. You can't do anything. But ultimately, down the road, you're going to find yourself in a position where you have this like great script, whether you wrote it or it's something that you control and you want to make it. And the first thing that the people putting up the money are going to want to do is find somebody else to direct it, because they're going to want somebody who's already directed a bunch of movies so that they can feel secure in their investment. So it's a huge uphill battle. And if you can have that like one or two short films that just blow people away, maybe they've even like gotten into festivals, maybe they've won awards, like you can really prove that like you can handle this. And the reason why I say always keep making them is that And it's a tough thing to learn, but it's like, you make one and it's good and people like it and you think it's great. It's probably not that good. And so you got to keep making them so that you have like this arsenal of stuff to choose from, and you're constantly learning. You're constantly learning how to light better, how to shoot better, how to get better performances. And you don't need a lot of money to make a short film at this point. You can use consumer cameras and you can edit on your own computer. The other advice would be when you have that script that you want to get made, the script can't speak for itself, because the people who finance these movies, the executives who read the scripts, they have no idea what they're looking at. So you have to sort of bring them a whole package. With Hatchet, we had a mock trailer that had already kind of lit up the internet and gotten people talking, which really helped, because that way, after we'd leave the meetings with potential investors, we'd say, tonight just Google Hatchet and see what comes up. And they'd see like hundreds of websites already talking about it. We also had this whole proposal package that looked like this crime scene document that was found in the swamp, and it was just very entertaining to read and kind of give a feel for what the movie was going to be. And I think that really helped. But other than that, the hard thing with filmmaking is that there is no ladder. There's no right way to go. It's not like you can go apply for a job. And that's the hardest thing for parents of kids who want to be filmmakers, like for them to understand, because you get out of film school and they're like, where are you going to go work? And my grandmother would always be like, well, call Steven Spielberg. Oh, okay. And that's another important thing. Like, other directors can't really do anything for you. It's the investors, it's the producers, it's the people with money who can get your movie put together. So just know who to go to. There's also a last piece of advice I can give on this. Actually, there's 2 books I can recommend. One of them is called Making Movies by John Russo, who made Night of the Living Dead with George Romero. And it's obviously extremely dated at this point as far as the amounts of money that they're talking about. But it shows how you can have no ties to Hollywood and still get a movie done. It's a very informative read. And then another book that I think is really important is called The Writer's Guide to Hollywood Producers, Directors, and Screenwriters Agents, and it's by Skip Press. And I don't know when the last edition was, but it really doesn't matter. The point is that it details how to submit your material, who to submit it to, how to do it correctly and professionally, and it explains, when you see those disclaimers, we don't accept unsolicited material or we can't read your script. It explains why they say that and how to get around it, and it's not that hard. And there's even some actual contact information at the end of like real places that you can send your stuff to. So it's really good, because they don't teach you that stuff in film school. They teach you editing and lighting and film theory, and none of that really helps you actually get started.
That answer your question, Astro?
Yeah, it does. I think that I've done a couple of short films, and I think it's kind of a great way to experiment and see what you can do.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any thoughts on Adobe After Effects? Because actually, there's a movie I rented not too long ago. I think it's like Delivery Boy. It's about like a killer pizza delivery guy, and they it's such a freaking movie. And they said that they did all the special effects with Adobe After Effects. Yeah,
I mean, if it's not intended to play on a 40-foot tall screen, and you can do it with like kind of basic stuff. If it's only going to be on a computer screen or a TV monitor, you can get away with some cheap effects that look great.
Yeah, I think it actually won awards at some type of festival. They talk about it on the DVD. I'm still here. Yes. No, I think I thought my computer lost some power there for a second.
Okay, POS off of our message board. He actually has
that out so it look cool.
I'm not touching that one. POS from our message board. He actually has a question. He wants to know what your opinions were of Daniel Day-Lewis winning the Oscar.
Oh my God! All right. I feel like Daniel Day-Lewis really won the Oscar for Gangs of New York.
Oh yeah.
They just happened to give it to another guy, and so I was so excited for him this year, because if he didn't win, I don't know what I was going to do. I think that guy is just, I don't even know how to put it into words. It hurts to watch him act because he's so good. It hurts. And I was, you know, and it's also funny because you don't really see him speak as himself in too many interviews and stuff. He kind of stays away from that. And then he gets up there, and he's this kind of frail, like, weird guy, and it really makes you appreciate what a great actor he is, because he's nothing like the characters that he plays. And I really was happy to see him win.
Yeah, Bill the Butcher, that's one of the greatest characters of, like, the last 10 years or so.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but I think with the Oscars sometimes it's sort of like your turn to win,
Right.
Yeah.
kind of, and I think it was like Denzel's turn to win that year, because I don't think Training Day is at all Denzel's best performance or the most challenging one he's ever done, but I think it was just his time.
I'd just say the same thing about Scorsese, because I didn't think that was his best movie by far.
No, and especially like his editor winning that year too. Like that's some of the worst editing in a movie ever. And I still want to know how they decide who the best editor is, because in my experience I've never met an editor who had final cut and got to actually edit the movie the way they want. Like they're obviously the ones doing it, but there's producers, there's directors who are saying how it has to be. So I've always been curious how they actually come up with the winners for those awards.
You think they'd have to see like the unedited version and the edited version to be able to tell who is the best editor?
Yeah, exactly.
Anything else you want to tell like all the fans out there?
I guess just thank you for what a great ride this has been so far, and like I wouldn't be here now if it wasn't for the horror fans and what they did and supporting everything so passionately. And like the other thing I want to say is like to the Hatchet fans and like my fans, like I so appreciate the level of integrity and respect they have. You know, every now and then somebody will send me. I try to stay off those message boards and stuff and not look at it.
Right.
But I love the fact that the Hatchet fans come across very intelligent, and they don't sit and force it down other people's throats. They don't write all these like hateful, awful things about other movies or other people who don't agree with them. And I'm proud to be the guy who made the movie. If you have fans that are that great.
Mm-hmm. Tell everybody buy Spiral on DVD, you got Hatchet on DVD, and I want to thank you for coming back on Without Your Head.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. We'll keep here for a second.
All right.
Hey, it's Joel David Moore, and you're listening to withoutyourhead.com. Hey, it's Joel David Moore, and you're listening to withoutyourhead.com.